What is going on, guys? Today we are going to be going over the X01, which is the original pistol chassis for the P320 system. This predates all of them. The Strike Industries SMC, the Flux Raider. This was number one. We are going to put it through some drills. We're going to do some autistic talking back in the warmth because it is absolutely freezing today. But for now, let's get right back into it. Before we get into it, just wanted to remind you guys, if you do like the content you're seeing, make sure you subscribe, make sure you go down to the comments, get a little silly, and like the videos. We're almost at the 2,000 subscriber mark, which has been a pretty big goal of mine, so I appreciate everybody for sticking around as long as you have. Let's get to some shooting. Alright, so, a couple different ways you can reload this. It does have the charging handle on the side. As you can see, racks it open. You can also lock that charging handle up, put a mag in, do your usual HK slap, which is, in my opinion, a little unnecessary. And then you can also either use your left thumb as you're coming up or your right thumb and hit the slide release like you normally would on a pistol. So we are going to try the HK slap and the slide release to see if there's any difference. I don't shoot with gloves very often, so it's not going to look great. I don't really have a kit for this thing yet, so I just got mags stuffed everywhere. So let's get a couple of these going. Alright, the internet's favorite. We'll do a couple 1R1s to do this. Alright. Alright, 512, not the fastest. Let's do that again. .568. I tried to manipulate the safety that time. We'll do one more with the slap. I missed it. Alright, 539. It's consistent at least. Let us do the slide release. Should feel a little more natural. .382. So much faster. .380. Fumbled that one up pretty good. But as you can see, you at least have the two methods to reload. Say if you do have gloved hands and it's harder to hit that slide release like you just saw, you can at least use the charging handle to make it work. Now, another good thing about the charging handle, say there's a malfunction, unlike with the Flux Raiders where you have to get some kind of aftermarket, having a built-in one is nice. I can chuck that round out of there, manually lock it up, see what's going on, and fix it from there. So that is a really cool feature of this gun. Let's get back into it. Let's run a couple of build drills, see how fast we can shoot this bad boy, and then we'll throw it to a much warmer version of myself to go over the autistic portion. So, a couple of build drills. A little bit of a trigger freeze there. That was a 186. All A zones. Let's do that again. All right. All A zones again. That was a 162. Let us take a peek. Oh my God, I am a liar. We got one Charlie. That's it. I have to quit the internet. I gotta quit gun tubing. One Charlie. Now, set you back down here. We do have an Apex trigger in here. It has a factory trigger bar. The forward set trigger bar, I didn't really like the trigger press, so just a Apex trigger, factory internals on the FCU in general. And that's really the only modifications to the base gun itself, minus a 5.5-inch barrel that I threw on here as well. But let us do a little talking, and we'll come down, run a few more drills, and give my final thoughts. Alright guys, now for the autistic portion of the video. If you did want to skip ahead to the rest of the shooting, I'll leave a timestamp somewhere here. I'm not going to be that hurt. But for those of you who have no idea what this thing is and want to know what is going on here, stick around. So, this is the X01 chassis system, originally from Fire Control Unit. I believe it's exclusively sold now through X01, which is where I got mine from. And the reason that this particular build came about was when I first saw PSR. He did a video on his, and I thought that this was just the coolest thing I've ever seen. Super sweet. But what I will say that this does not have going for it is in its complete stock configuration, before you actually start building it out, it's maybe the ugliest gun on the face of the earth. It's some kind of weird fish gun. Not impressive. So when you show a lot of people, hey, I'm thinking about buying this, they will ban you from chat groups. It has happened to me. So don't even tell anybody about it if you're planning on getting one of these until you build it out. This thing here has divided my friend group 100%. You either love it or you hate it, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's not a universally loved thing like the Flux Raider, not in a long shot. So, what is it? This is the very first pistol chassis for the P320 Fire Control Group. This predates the Flux, predates the SMC, any of the other chassis you see for the 320. This was the first one. So, the host gun I used for this was my old M18. You do have to send them a direct message on Instagram or email saying that you are using a manual safety gun as your host gun, so you get the correct chassis, or else you have to do the safety delete, which could be a pain in the butt. I did want to keep my safety, so this is one I got. It comes with an SP tactical brace. It is a 2-position. Stows up nice and tight. Pulls out nice and easy. Extremely uncomfortable brace. So I did have to put a bunch of camo foam on there to pad it up. The first few times I really put some rounds down range with this thing, I had a pretty gnarly bruise in the pad of my shoulder here. So I had to wrap that up. Ever since doing so, pretty comfortable. So you get the brace. You do get ambidextrous charging handles, which are pretty sweet. The one here on the left does lock up if you did want to do the old HK slap. A little unnecessary, but pretty sweet. You can still hit these slide releases pretty easily if you're doing any sort of reload. Hit that pretty nice. The ambi safety is very nice, easily reachable. But that's basically what you get. You get the chassis system, you get the SP tactical brace, and it comes with the charging system. Now, it is important to, again, just like with the manual safety, let them know what host gun you're using. Because if it's M17, it's going to have different internals for the charging handle, as opposed to your M18 with the shorter slide. The barrel length does not matter, which I'll go over shortly, but the slide length does for this charging system. They have 3 different versions, whether you have an X5 Legion, an M17, or M18. Let's go over how I've decided to build up mine. What we have here is a Unity mount with a Romeo 7S. We're running a Purst 4 for a laser module. This one is sweet because it has a button on top and in the back, so I can simply just roll my hand to press that rear button. I don't have to reach kind of all the way up on top or run a second pad, which I really don't have a lot of room for. I'm running that Surefire Mini Scout with a Unity button, and for cable management there's just a little loop here. I'll just have that running through. Didn't really need any tape or any of that. And then an Arasaka angled grip. Fairly simple setup, even though it's a small compact package, so it looks like there's a lot going on. But that is basically it. Now, the only modifications to the host gun itself is an Apex trigger, and I have opted for a 5.5-inch barrel after I threw it in here to get a little bit more practicality out of what this thing really is, which is a PDW, a force multiplier, So got some extra range out of it. Now let's talk about the bad of the system. Now the inside gets absolutely disgusting with carbon buildup since it's an enclosed system, which could lead to the slide kind of getting gummed up, rubbing against this if there's a bunch of carbon on there. So it's something to keep an eye on. I haven't run into any issues of it. I just have noticed that it does get a little gross on the inside of that. We did speak briefly about the comfort level of the brace that it comes with. It's not great. You could throw a side folder on there if you really wanted to. I've decided to keep it because it just folds so nicely into the slots that are molded into the system. So I've just stuck with it. The other downsides would be, especially compared to the SMC or the Flux, it is a little bit bulkier, so it's a lot less. So it is a lot less concealable. You know, I've definitely thrown this in my bag, gone about my day, and been completely fine. But it does have some weight to it. That's not necessarily a downside to me. I'd rather have a much sturdier system, but that is something to consider for what this is intended to be, which is, let's face it, a bag gun. Because of that, I kind of leave that up to you, but for me, considering what people would buy this for, I would say that would be a minus for this system. Pluses would be a full-length rail on top, so you can mount laser, optic, all on one plane, the built-in charging handles, the allotment of M-LOK sections that you can attach to, the built-in QD, the collapsible buttstock. Even though it's enclosed, it does have this enormous section here to fit a suppressor if you're in a free state. Now, that is basically the X01. Why don't we get back to the range? We'll do a little bit more shooting, run some drills. Final thoughts on the X01. Let's get back down to the range. Alright, so we've got this Barricade set up at about 15. It's not to VTAC standards, it's just what we have lying around at this range. But I'm going to attempt to use some of the more difficult holes. So we're just going to get one shot, center target at 15 on each one. So we're going to do a triangle, we're going to do the circle, we're going to do the far left slant, and then we were going to do second circle. We'll give that a go. The reason this is going to be difficult though, with the rifle this wouldn't be too bad, is the height over bore on this thing is insane. So on some of these, the only way I'm going to make the hit is if I use the backup iron sight that's built into the Unity to get a little bit lower on the gun and bring the muzzle, so it's not going to be blasting through the wood. So let's see how we do. Alright, let's see how we do. Hopefully there's 4 hits on that target. Let's take a peek. So extremely difficult with that height over bore situation. But let's see how we did. We got 1, 2, 3 alphas and 1 Charlie. You know what, I'll take it. I've never really run this gun on a Barricade before. Those circle ports are a little difficult. But what I noticed is, and I'll set this up here, is this tiny little hook right here. You can just shove it in and just rest the hook, and then you can kind of get the optic to see through, as opposed to just kind of holding it up super high. I guess I could have used the laser, but that little hook seemed to work out pretty good. So let's get one more drill to work on that height over bore, and then give my final thoughts. So how's the reliability been on this bad boy? So having owned this for a little while now, I really waited a long time before I wanted to make a video on it to see if it's even going to function being in this full enclosed housing or not. And to be honest, I did have some stoppages, 1 to 2 per every 100 rounds or so. It's usually a failure. It was usually a failure to eject. And it really only happened with the 115 grain stuff. Now, it should be said that I have been running this gun fairly hard this morning. We've strictly been running 115s, a mix of Blazer and a mix of S&B, and haven't run into any sort of issues. I used to basically only be able to run the 150 grain stuff through this, but it seems to be running pretty good with the 115s now, which is good because it's cheaper. We'll do a little Mozambique for the people. At this distance, hopefully I know what my holdover is, but we will see. So, the Mozambique. Alright, that is a line break into the head box. Let's do that again. 141. A little low in the head box on that time. 154. Let's do that. Let's see if we can get a clean run. Woo! That was 1 second flat. That was a good one. Let's go take a look. We're at about 5 yards there. This Charlie is from when I was zeroing this gun earlier, so disregard that. We got all A zones here. The very first one was a line break. Second Mozambique was here. That last one at 1 second flat, right in the head box. So while this is an obnoxious height over bore situation I have going, really not too bad. So what do I think of the X01 chassis? So far, minus the teething issues at the beginning, it's been extremely reliable. I love this thing. You can get this thing super compact, throw it in a bag, you're good to go. Using just normal 320 mags is really nice because I already had a bunch of them. And just having a bunch of space to put the things you actually need, like a light, laser, super high optic if you want it. It does have a Picatinny section at the rear for different stocks if you did want to switch that up. All the M-LOK sections you have, it is pretty sweet. I absolutely love it when it's all decked out like this. When you do get this in from the website, it is god ugly. It is awful. It is so ugly. But once you kind of kit it out, it is super sweet. It's super fun. I absolutely love this thing. I was kind of iffy about it when I first got it because I ended up just not really shooting it a lot. And I think that does happen with most people that end up building bag guns or PDWs or any sort of pistol chassis, is they build this, but they have their ARs, they have their regular everyday carries, and their belt setups, that this kind of fits a very specific niche that not a lot of people end up using or even needing in the first place. So this definitely doesn't get shot as much in my other guns. Hopefully though, once I find a good way to record night vision, because that's what this thing was built for in the first place with the IR laser, I'll be able to get some cool footage with this over at the indoor range. But from there, I'm going to say thanks for watching. Hopefully you stuck around for the whole video. If you did like it, make sure you go down and like, comment. Let me know if you've shot the X01 or if you have a Flux. Let me know what you have for any sort of PDW, whether it's just an AR9. But get in the comments, mix it up. Let me know what you think. Do you love it? Do you hate it? Other than that, this has been the X01.